Hello again.
Hey, how are you?
Good, how
I,
are you?
I like that your color scheme matches kind of with mine. It's just kind of, winter theme with my woodwork, and you've got the backdrop that works with the color scheme as well. We didn't even plan it.
No, we didn't.
Yeah,
So,
so
what do you want
yeah,
to talk about today?
I don't know. No, just kidding. I was thinking maybe we'd talk about something called, it's a long name for a fairly common sense notion called sociogenomics. Sociogenomics, meaning that there are social things, variables that impact literally on your DNA and
Ooh,
influence your DNA. So, most people think, well, man, if I eat the wrong things, like, could I injure my DNA? If I smoke, maybe that's going to cause some kind of trouble with my DNA. Um, but it turns out that not having the right social supports, feeling isolated, feeling alone, can also literally injure your DNA, which I think of as sad but
yeah.
also a kind of miracle because people really do need one another. We're sensitive creatures in a day of AI, and everyone thinking I'm really my Facebook profile. You're really not. You're a person. You have feelings, and you have a need for interpersonal uh, interactions and hugs and love. And if you don't get it and make time for it, and not just stay on the computer and
Mhm.
not just isolate, you can do yourself harm at a genetic level. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's such a strange connection. Like you said, you just wouldn't imagine that your DNA could be influenced by having love in your life or companionship or, the things that, we kind of crave every day as humans. But
And so, yeah, it turns
yeah,
out we crave them for a good reason. And one is that there's some wisdom to, your heart, your mind, and your body working in synergy and not spending time with people you care about and not being part of a community
yeah,
is dangerous. And
yeah.
literally dangerous at the molecular level. And knowing that is a massive window on what kind of moment this is in our culture because we're rushing headlong into, wearing goggles or, whatever it might be, isolating, thinking that engaging in video games is the same as actually engaging in life. It isn't. And it's physiologically, it turns out, it could be dangerous because it could replace
Yeah.
human connectedness.
Yeah, we actually talked about, the whole TikTok thing a few weeks ago where, what does that do when something that you're so incredibly used to doing on every day for maybe hours a day? And how does that change your perspective when all of a sudden it's gone? And so, what's going on with your DNA when you're going through that experience of withdrawal from something like that? We don't have any other companionship or love or, the things that really make us human.
Right. And, some of this you can probably get from interactions that are mediated by technology, like, the phone or Zoom or even text messaging, but it's not the same. And that's one of the things that comes out of the studies. It's not the same as spending time in a real room with
Mhm.
someone who you can touch there, and see in three dimensions.
Yeah.
And that's feeding your visual sense, it's feeding your auditory sense. It's not scripted. Like we're being spontaneous on this interaction, right? On this video with each other. And yet it's still not the same as if there weren't structure around it, like this structure, right? A screen,
Yeah.
knowing there's a camera, that's like a third entity,
Yeah.
right? Because you're not really 1,000% yourself when you're on camera.
No,
Uh,
no, you weren't. It's not easy to be yourself on camera.
it's
And that's the other thing. I mean, you think about just a thought, what happened during COVID. when especially kids were not socialized. And I hear so many family, members of not my family in particular, because we didn't have any young kids at that time, but uh, friends who have kids were not in school at the time, and they're they seem socially delayed. You wonder what is going on with their DNA. Like, is that really something that can be repaired?
Well, I mean, that's a really important theoretical observation because DNA gets passed between generations.
Yes.
And they've shown that, like being traumatized by terrible world events like the Holocaust, et cetera, that can influence your DNA and influence the next generation, not just psychologically because you've been changed by trauma, but at a level of DNA because your DNA has been changed
Wow.
by trauma. Right? And so when you think about, well, what are we doing to people when kids were told you can't come to school, you gotta attend school on, the computer.
Mhm.
That had a no doubt a chromosomic DNA level effect on a whole generation of young people, but not just them, the next generation potentially as well. And so you'll notice when we're doing this, people will notice, I hope, uh, it's not the same as just hanging out.
No.
And it's unlikely. How many times have you done a Zoom with someone when you stop and you say, "You doing all right?" Because you look like a little different or
Yeah.
upset, or it
Yeah.
doesn't
Yeah.
happen that much
Yeah.
because the screen doesn't really convey that. If you're at your family's house or you're with friends, it's much more common for someone to say, "You don't seem like yourself." Now, what does that mean? It doesn't happen much in video chatting. What does it mean? You don't seem like yourself. It's someone saying, you do have a core self. And I can kind of resonate with that. When you're okay, you're yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Other people sometimes can sense it. And when you're not, they can sense it and they can be empathetic,
Yeah.
supportive. Just asking the question can change the moment because you're like, oh, I guess I'm not really alone. Like someone has expressed concern. And we need that.
Yeah, and certainly even when you get on a Zoom call, with your colleagues and everybody asks, "Hey, how's everybody doing?" And everybody's like, "Great." And
Right.
you know, probably not everyone is great at that moment, but you don't really ever follow up on that. Are you really good? But the other thing that came to mind is so now I wonder because in California with the wildfires, which we talked about before as well, just the emotional tolls of that, or even in North Carolina with the flooding and they're still trying to, get back on their feet. But kids are now gonna, because the schools are gone. So now they're going to have to go back to that online teaching. So
Yeah.
now they're getting a double whammy. And what is, how can parents
Tough.
help kids to, to continue to engage out in situations where they're not able to because they don't have a school that's open?
It's very difficult. I mean, I know that during COVID, some parents got together. They structured playtime for kids
Mm.
because they were, and people who homeschool their kids do this too.
Well, yeah, that's
Um,
true. Yeah.
yeah, and so I think it's so important to have that happen. What else? I'm a big proponent of animals in the house. It can be a goldfish, by the way, if you want to get it really manageable. But
Yeah.
even having a goldfish is spontaneous. Like a fish in a tank does stuff that you're not controlling. It might relate to you in some way. I know, it might follow your finger, whatever it is. But if you think about a dog, you're at a whole other level, or a
Yeah.
cat.
Yeah.
And
Interesting.
people feel this connection. It's such a wonderful thing, by the way,
Yeah.
this interspecies connectedness that people can feel that's very real. And it's absolutely the case that having a domestic animal can keep you healthier longer. Why? Well, there's a DNA reason, apparently, right? You
Mm.
may be safeguarding yourself even from things as, tragic as cancer, by remaining engaged with others, with your environment, with pets. Go for a walk. You got to get out. You can't allow yourself to be hostage to a virtual environment at all times, looking at four walls. Get out, go for walks, get an animal if you can, go see somebody you care about. These are things that will literally, and who knew, sociogenomics tells us will insulate your DNA from harm. It's kind of a beautiful thing.
It is really. I mean, you think about the whole mechanism of the human body and to go down to the level of DNA, and you wonder, when um, a couple who has been married for 50 plus years, and one
Mm,
of them passes away, and they always say the other one sometimes quickly goes because of a broken heart. So that
yeah.
companionship, is it the companionship, but it does it do something maybe more than we originally thought?
I'm sure that's possible that the loss of that connection resonates at a very deep
Mm,
emotional level,
yeah.
but also at a biochemical genetic level. And if you believe that, once you believe it, and you should, because the data's there, I believe, you start to think how important it is to make sure that people do have these connections. It's not easy, and we have an epidemic right now of isolation and loneliness, and it's only going to get worse when people say, talk to my avatar,
Yeah.
right? Because everyone's going to develop for not much dough,
Yeah.
an avatar version of themselves who maybe attends a lot of meetings that aren't the most important meetings,
Yeah.
and reports back to them with some notes and says, this is what happened. Okay, but we got to study this because we're going to find out that things like voicemail and when you call like the airline and you get 17 choices and right, and then you get routed from here to there to another place. You get a sense like I feel helpless.
Yeah.
I don't feel like anyone's helping me. Um, does that literally physiologically cause a little teeny damage? It might. Do we repair most of that? I'm sure,
Yeah.
but
If we're healthy, right? If your immune system and everything else, your mitochondria are working right, then maybe you do repair some of it. But what if there's people who have low mood or who really haven't slept in nights, or have brain fog, for example, from COVID? Like, what can people do to help repair that faster?
absolutely, well, right, and that's where things like, if you can get or give a hug, we would have thought that's nice, and it's emotionally sustaining. But to know that it might also be sustaining of your physiology and your DNA is really a great thing to know. So too, getting out in the environment, sleeping enough, right, can restore your DNA, no doubt. I think getting connected with things even matters, like
Mm,
reading a book rather than everything as an ebook. The
yeah.
tactile nature of that, remaining connected to as many things as you can that are real and authentic,
Yeah.
and also having someone know you at a deep level, not a surface level, which is why
Hmm.
we're embarking on this life coaching initiative, you and I together. And that's really important because people do need to be known,
Yes.
right? And
Yes.
we live these lives, we tend to be, yeah, everything's great, everything's fine. You're not necessarily going to bare your soul to everyone, but you do have to bare your soul to someone. And that could be
You
us.
do. That's what builds a relationship, right? Is bearing your soul, even when you don't want to.
Yeah,
But,
because
but
usually the relationships are built through adversity
yes.
and by revealing what has caused you pain. Nobody connects around the best parts of their resume. It's like,
No.
okay, great, good for you. We're applauding. But really, your heart goes out to people when they say, this is what I lived through, or this is what I'm going through.
Yeah. Can we talk a little bit about natural compounds, ingredients? For example, in our supplements, but not just ours. There's others out there, but certainly things that decrease the inflammation. May
Jim,
help repair DNA.
true nutritional biochemist, you are with a PhD. I like that. I believe that. Four Vita Health supplements,
Mm,
ours, just to put in a plug for us, but there are others, as you
mm,
say, have a number of ingredients that are anti-inflammatory. Um, no doubt. People have a sense of this, by the way. They instinctively know it, that when they get upset, it feels like inflammation, doesn't it? Like you're inflamed.
right. Yeah.
It feels that way. You get overheated. People use that language. Why do they use that language? Like, now I'm all upset. I'm getting overheated. Why? Because it's true. Because your inflammatory cells are going crazy, and a number of the ingredients in For Brain Fog, in For Better Mood, and For Great Sleep are anti-inflammatory.
Yeah.
Inflammation is a scourge, and that's why these things work in part because there's a combination in each one
Yeah.
of multiple anti-inflammatory agents,
And they all do different things. I mean,
and they all.
the end result is, for example, some of them will raise serotonin levels, other ones will decrease inflammation, maybe not directly, for example, 5-HTP or ashwagandha, they all have a different way of getting into the system to work in combination to bring the anti-inflammatory results or the increased serotonin or decreased cortisol. So, supplements are made so that they're blended in such a way that they work together to make sure to accomplish the end goal of sleep, getting rid of the brain fog, or just having a better mood without Prozac.
It's an amazing thing. I mean that these are like if you just stop for a second and think to yourself, wait a second, these are from like nature. These are things that grow or exist in nature, whether they're amino acids or they're herbs
Hmm.
or they're vitamins. That's an amazing thing to think that those items, when properly combined, and I think we've got them properly combined
Yeah,
in
I hope
four
so.
Vita Health supplements, literally reduce inflammation and can impact in a very positive way mood, brain fog, so you increase your focus, and sleep in a positive way for great sleep.
Yeah,
Um, and I'm hearing great stuff, which is
yeah,
very gratifying. So it's not, there's every reason they would work scientifically. And what's great is sometimes things turn out the way they should. People say,
yeah,
this helps. Yeah, well, yeah,
yeah.
there's scientific reasons why it would.
And not everything works for everybody every single time. Even prescription medications that have undergone rigorous clinical trial testing.
Well, that's true. I mean, and we're not treating illnesses. We're talking about mood, not major depression. We're talking about brain fog, not attention
Yeah,
deficit disorder, et cetera. But it's so true that in the case of depression, major depression, sometimes people need to try one or two or three or four or five medicines before getting it right. And so in those cases, it is what it is. Your doctor doesn't tend to refund your fee for going to see him. On the other hand, if you try for brain fog, or you try for better mood, or you try for great sleep, all with the number four, by the way,
yeah,
and it doesn't work for you, you get your money back. At least there's that. We
yeah.
can't give you your time back, but we can give you your money back and make you feel a little bit like, okay, I didn't waste my dough.
Yeah, exactly. So is there going back to the sociogenomics, is there anything else that we've missed here?
I don't think there's anything else that we missed here, other than, I will put in a plug for our life coaching that we're going to roll out,
Yeah,
that people can literally talk to us
yeah,
about their lives, about planning the next chapters of their lives, and also going back and thinking about the earlier chapters in their lives and getting help with diet and exercise. So we have a comprehensive mind body solution to
yeah,
these things. And that's a dream because I've always wanted to combine naturally occurring remedies with helpful counseling. And that's what we've got at
yeah.
4vitahealth.com.
It'll be fun. I can't wait to start working on that. It's going to be something way beyond the imagination because
I
most
think
people
so.
go to a dietitian, or most people go to dietitians because they get sent there by their physician. And dietitians are great. They have a role, especially in the hospital. um, but they're traditionally trained and don't sometimes, even in training now, they're taught things that were 20 years ago. We've advanced since then. And so I think it's going to be exciting to see what happens with science, because I think they're going to see real transformations. You with incredible, a psychiatrist who is just so good with people.
Well, think about it. Like, talk about synergy and how synergy can sometimes deliver stunning results.
Hmm.
So, whatever I bring as an MD. You bring as a nutritional biochemist with a PhD, your understanding of nutrition, fitness, diet. And then we've got the supplements. So it's like one-stop shopping. It's like, okay, let's use the right supplements. Let's team up. Very often you get one therapist, if any, but here's a twofer. And
Yeah,
so I like that. I like the idea of teaming up to make people everything they can be and relieve some of what they're going through.
great. Can't wait.